Not all money's good money. Don't sell everything to all of your clients. Every single engineer I know are people pleasers. Shut the back door so that people don't walk out of it as you're focusing on the front door.
So, Perry Ashby, an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Jeff. I'm very well. Thanks for having me on.
I've been looking forward to this one because you are an upstanding member of our community, as well as being someone with a load of experience in terms of just running an MSP. So it's good to have you here.
I'll accept a lot of experience for sure. That comes with age, James. Upstanding. We'll see by the end of this podcast, shall we?
Yeah, let's see how we get on. So, if you've watched this before, I hope you've seen at least one episode of this before. So we do a misconception.
Just before I've done this.
Yeah, just a brief only. So we do a misconception. So tell me something that people get wrong about you, Perry, when they first meet you.
So I would say, because of my nature, my personality, some people think that potentially I'm unapproachable or sometimes a little bit angry. I've got quite a furrowed brow on me, so I can certainly look like I'm not ready to be approached in any way. But I'd like to think that I'm quite open and engaging with most people. So if you see me and you don't know me, come and talk to me.
Yeah, I like that. Very welcoming. And there's probably a whole load of people actually listening to this from across the pond who are thinking either, I love that guy's accent, or I've got no idea what he just said. This Australian keeps going on about.
In all honesty, I get called Australian and very rarely posh, which I'm not sure how many of our US friends have met the upper class, but it's certainly not my accent.
Yeah, there's a little bit of confusion going on there, isn't there?
Indeed.
So, listen, the reason I was so keen to have a chat to you is we had a conversation for actually something else, for another project we were doing, and it sort of was very clear that you're a big proponent of the whole existing customer growth area, which is something that obviously is main topic for this podcast. So, I wonder if we could just kind of unpack it a little bit, really. So, you're firmly set up with your goal being to expand existing customers first, which is great. So can you tell me a little bit about what that kind of means for you then?
So I think, we've been around since 2002, 2003, James. And, I would suggest we moved into what is now classed as MSP, service delivery, 2007, maybe 2008. And it was very clear, even at that point, when we were sending engineers on site doing sort of like site visits, like block hour type work, clinics and things, that the more we engaged with our clients, even at that point in engineering, that every time we put people on site, we'd get more work back. Every time we'd speak to the clients and engage with them, we'd understand more and we'd sell more or we'd deliver more. And it doesn't take a genius to join those dots up and say, well, we need to talk to our clients. It's not just an engineering function now. We're moving out of, as many MSPs do, very engineering focused into being a more business focused as well. So you have more members of the team that aren't technical.
And at that point, they're not asking probing questions, your team. You're just on site doing stuff and getting FaceTime.
We started our business as it wasn't quite break fix. We don't think called block hours. We'd sell block of hours. They'd call them off when they needed them, or we'd have allocation of being on site on 2 days a week or 2 half days or something like that. But we noticed every client that we've done that with, they're the ones that we started to generate more revenue and sold more services that they needed, they were aware of at that point. So when you start growing the team, the first goal or the first idea of everyone is, I need to sell more. So they hire salespeople, net new, hunters out there. And it's the wrong approach. The approach is to firm up what you've got, shut the back door so that people don't walk out of it as you're focusing on the front door, and then ensure that it's a lot easier to sell to those clients than it is to go and hunt. It takes from cold to sold in our world. 3 to 6 months, it can easily be that lead time is really long. Whereas you've got a prime engaged client base sitting with you already. Why wouldn't you talk to them and see if there's any opportunity there, even at a high level opportunity there?
Yeah, you say that, but obviously there's a lot of MSPs out there who are in exactly that situation where they are doing work, but they're not necessarily yet thinking along the lines of actually the existing customers are where it's at. They are still very concerned with, there's almost a panic around, I must have new logos coming in the door. So it's definitely a mindset shift, isn't it?
There's always a change of acquiring net new, right? And you hear it in not just our industry, in every business. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. But you can grow much faster and at a more stable rate with your client base, the whole 80-20 rule of 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your clients absolutely stands true. Why don't you look at your client base and see what they need? Talk to them, first of all. Just talk to them. Do nothing more than that. And just through conversation, you'll probably identify some sort of areas that they just didn't know that you provided that service, and you've been providing it for the last sort of 2-3 years.
That's the most frustrating thing, isn't it, when someone rings up and says, "Oh, hey, look, I've just taken whatever it might be, broadband or security or something for another company." Like, I've been telling you via email about that for
it is, and it
best part of 12
conversation.
months.
It's human connection. I know we're very much more hybrid and remote these days in all aspects of business. Go and see them. Go and have a coffee with them.
Yes.
That engagement. Yeah, I truly believe we've built a whole function around our account management of talking, making sure you're engaging with the clients. Yeah,
I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah,
I'm glad you touched on that, because that's exactly the area I'd like to go into. Because I think you're set up specifically, aren't you, to have a team that kind of have more of those types of conversations. So can we talk a little bit about how you're structured?
We operate in the south of England, and we've got 3 locations there. So our client base is geographical. So we've put account managers covering each of those regions. And the idea being that they've got their clients and they need to engage with them and talk through that. With that engagement or that responsibility from the account manager was end to end, other than probably purchasing items or services. They dealt with all of that process, the admin process, all the way through. And we've just restructured that to give a slightly different approach, where we've got an internal sales admin engagement team member, so that we can allow the guys that I ask to talk to our clients have more time to go and do that. So their sole function is to engage with the clients, learn. One of the prime questions is that they need to understand is, how does that client make money?
So did you find they're actually being sort of distracted? Could you sense that actually they weren't able to have the time they needed to do that job, or was it just a case of you just want to go in that direction and really focus? We
try and measure everything on the engagement side of my side of the fence. I sit on the sales and account management side, and it's absolutely, you could see that the number of accounts that they've got, there's not enough time for them to talk to them all in an engaging way. But they can't truly understand that client's business, which means we can't affect change with all of the knowledge and technology that's accessible to us. So give them more time to be in front of them, to build that relationship. And the way we've done that is take some of that task out of them that sits now in office effectively, as opposed to out on the road in front of the clients.
Can we talk a little bit about the kind of questions that they ask? Do you have are you fairly sort of prescriptive in terms of, not scripts, but kind of this is the kind of thing you want to be talking about, or do you just let each one find their own way and
We split. Well, once we decided that account management function is incredibly important. You've got, once you've sold into a client and they become a client, you've got 2 major shop windows. You've got your service desk, where people engage all the time, and it's normally from an incident-based issue, i.e. something's wrong. So they're normally quite stressed as well. So there needs to be a great level of customer care in that piece. But then you've got the account management, which the moment you build that function, should be talking to them fairly regularly to just understand everything. And that includes understanding how the service desk element of our portfolio is being delivered. So depending on the size of the clients that you're looking for, you should be able to touch the client in at least 2 different ways. And they're 2 different conversations. And you could argue, as you get bigger, they're 2 different people having these conversations. And what I mean by that is we have operational conversations. So they're typically looking back and they're getting into the weeds, their tickets, what happened here. Sarah in accounts has got a problem with her computer, or life cycle sort of asset management, these sort of things. They're very technical, operational. And you may have that conversation with an office manager, depending on the size of the organization. Office manager, it might be the CEO's PA. It tends to be that type of role and person.
And your account managers are doing this, though, right?
They're having both. We do have some clients where that is split, and the operational sits between part account manager and part technical lead. And we go down to somewhere, if you look at the cadence of that, at the beginning, on a sizable, we're weekly in those operational, because as we're on board and we're walking through those. On a typical cadence, they could be monthly or bi-weekly. We have certain clients we run bi-weekly operational calls on. It keeps that touch point, it keeps that relationship, and it is in the weeds, and it is predominantly looking backwards. And then we have strategic meetings. Now they're typically every 3 months, every 4 months, depending on the client. And not everyone has them split like this. If the smaller clients, you're going to morph those 2 meetings into one, because the engagement just isn't there. We're now starting to try and measure our clients around what their engagement is, not just, everyone tries to grade their clients or at least talk about it. What we're trying to do is not a measurement of just revenue, which, everyone measures how important is this client. And it's normally that top number, irrespective of the profit that comes out at the bottom of it, how much work you're doing from it. It's normally that top number, that revenue. We're starting to try and measure engagement. How often are we talking to them, and what the conversations are? Are they forward looking, or are they always looking in that operational piece, moaning, complaining, reviewing a ticket, just to understand what their appetite for growth is, what their appetite of using technology as an enabler and not a cost.
So how does your dashboard look then? Are you kind of have you got sort of is like a sentiment thing going on there, where you've got like a tickets raised, or?
It's the bit we haven't quite distilled. As I said, we're just getting into it, and the problem that I already foresee, and you're starting to see the grassroots of it, is the sentiment, because it's subjective. It depends on the personalities of the account managers talking to the personalities that are there, and what mood they're in at the time. So it can ebb and flow, or you can see the prospect of it ebbing and flowing. So we've still got to try and bring it down to a more formulaic approach. But at the moment, that done is better than perfect. We try and move that route of, let's try this, let's see if it works. And we'll always look at it and reiterate it and understand if it's working for us or not. It might fall flat on its backside, James, but you've got to keep trying to understand. Our goal is to sit in a strategic position.
Yeah, this is the challenge, isn't it? But I really like the way you frame that in terms of the 2 conversations, and the fact you got one looking back and one looking forward. I think that's quite useful. In terms of the sentiment as well, I mean, there's probably never been a better time, right, to be able to analyse data at scale. So if you've got transcripts and stuff, then there's probably getting to the point.
I don't want to come into that so early in this conversation to put those 2 letters.
I didn't say the letters.
So I'm not going to say them either. Look, absolutely. There's ideas that, and at the moment they are just ideas in our business of how we can use newer technology, James, to strengthen that. Absolutely. It's happening within the ticketing environments already, right? So why wouldn't you extend that out? Our business works in the recruitment industry quite a bit, and they're head and shoulders above where they want to be, or where other businesses are in terms of analysing those conversations and those transcripts.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's just volumes of data, isn't it, in those spaces.
We've always tried to put across into our business that all of us are in customer care. We're all client service administrators in one way. We're just in the technical sphere, but all of us deliver customer service. As much as I try and ban the word customer in our business, they're clients. We're a professional organisation. We're not a retail organisation. So we deliver client services, not customer services. But it's hard to not use that word sometimes when you're talking about CSAT and things like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we're as you know from my history as well, and the environments and groups that I'm in, we've always been trying to push our industry to professionalize it, to make it be seen as the true white collar industry that it is. And you have to do that through language as well as action. And that's a really simple one, but it's to me, it's quite an effective one.
So it's all about the human element. It's all about professionalizing what we're doing. How do we sell them more stuff, Perry? That's the thing. So we've got a gap. So I'm being flippant about it, obviously, but there is a gap there, right? So we've talked about the need to, you're having these conversations, you're having a better understanding of where they are as a business, where they're going, all that sort of stuff. I always like to try and understand what MSPs, what their approach is between, you've got customer requirements, and then you have got, to a degree, a standardized set of services and things, and it's pulling them together. So how do you? Well, first of all, what's the role and of sort of your portfolio in that? Do you think it's important to have a standardized portfolio there, or is it just talk to me about how you package and price and stuff.
So I think if you're starting from zero on that, right, the first thing you've got to do is define your portfolio. Businesses that are starting out, and certainly some of the more micro MSPs, will sell anything. Our industry as a whole loves shiny new vendors, shiny new services, and what you've got to do is consolidate your service portfolio and bring it into a manageable area, first of all, so that you have a nice list of what services fit each need of the industry we're in, or if you're a small business or a particular vertical. Do that first and be ruthless. Don't scale it down. By all means, have a primary and secondary vendor for some of these key services, because we know there's an awful lot of overlap between a number of these services. But that's job one, right? First of all, reconcile. Be ruthless, and just because you've got one client out of your 50 clients that you're selling to that does it, do you need to do it? Because you've got to bear in mind, you've got to understand that product, you've got to support that product, and you've got to have all of your account managers, let's say in this instance, knowledgeable on that product. That's a huge amount of manpower and brain power for that very small product that only one or two clients have, right? So maybe move them, politely say to them, you're not going to renew that service, they need to move on to something else, or just don't deliver it. Yeah, that's step one, certainly that. Now you know what you're selling. Now the first instance is a simple white space matrix, which is very...
Yeah, and we talk about that a bit on this show. It's a popular concept.
It is.
Obviously, it's in the Sales Builder product, so we talk about it as well. But you can you don't have to do it on that. You can do it on a spreadsheet.
And we use that particular tool, right? But we don't do it there. We already had a process, and on what we've done, I feel we've just refined it and tried to semi-automate it. We started out, as everyone does, Excel spreadsheet, services, clients, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and wherever the white space is, that's your hunting ground from an account management point of view. We automated that slightly because an Excel sheet is very static, first of all. Sales Builder isn't. A lot of people will start in an Excel sheet. We tied it into our PSA. So we've got account user-defined fields that show, and we started doing it, first of all, even when we had the white space on an Excel sheet, we started doing it to enable the service desk to be aware of what services were active, so that they know if it's ours or if it's another vendor that's doing it or something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then what we done, we just brought those two things together, and now it's absolutely dual use. It's for the service desk so that they understand, and then they've got the documentation for whatever those services are. But it's just a simple, quick look of, oh yeah, that service is with us and it's with this vendor, that type of thing. But we also then, that's how it made sense. That's our white space. That's our matrix. If we align them so that the language is the same between the teams, because that makes a difference. And then every time that we deliver a service or remove a service, you just remove and change the UDF. We just report that out in real time, showing you where everything is. And then because you're creating that report, we define, right, let's say you've got 30 services that you deliver, and I'm talking everything there across your board. Then we pick, well, these are the core services, and an awful lot of MSPs these days are saying, look, this is, I'm not a big fan of the word, but this is my stack of products, and this is the minimum that you have to have. Yeah, and they slice and dice it however you want. Well,
do you do that? Have you got a baseline package, or do you just tend to sort of supply what's needed?
I think, you have to understand that, and it comes through maturity of understanding that an awful lot of clients, you'll explain to them all of the need of this. However, they may not want all of it. So yeah, absolutely, we've got about 4 or 5 core services over and above your standard managed service, your IT support type function and account management, that piece. But we will push them into it. If they don't, we've got mechanisms where we deliver recommendations, and we put supporting documentation of why you should have it. That sits on their account, and the mechanism in our contract terms are, look, if we're recommending this and you don't take it and something happens because of your
you're
inaction,
covering yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. But what that does, that sits in that. So we run reporting every month, and those recommendations are front and center with that client. So depending on what the account management touch point is, like you asked about, is it formulaic of how do we talk about these? What are the questions we ask? we have an agenda, and it's a fixed agenda. It can go off where it wants to, but the subject matter of the agenda is the same. And one of them is recommendations. Above that, we'll have at the beginning, it's like latest news, and that could be worldwide news in terms of, certainly from a cyber point of view, any of that supporting evidence helps.
I've never heard anyone yet actually do this. I've heard some recommendations from the sort of the business gurus and the MSP gurus that we've spoken to. They've always said that it's great to come in armed with some sort of macro facts and knowledge to sort of frame the conversation. But that's really interesting to hear you actually say you do actually do it.
Maybe we're doing it wrong, James, and everyone else is doing it right. Yeah, but
it seems like a lot of sense. It ties in, doesn't it?
It's good.
It frames the conversation.
To turn left when other people are turning right. Right. Like we started at the beginning. How do you differentiate yourself? The engagement, I hope, is one of the ways we do that. That the strategic conversation. So it's not. We spoke about how do you sell more. That's how you started this question, and it's not just about selling more. It's selling appropriate services. Yeah. So you taking that first step of defining what your portfolio looks like should be a big step towards what is appropriate for small businesses, enterprise, wherever it is you fit in the world of your service delivery. That's the first step. So you've got to get that right. You can change it. We look at our portfolio twice a year, and we used to look at it all the time. And now I'm like, look, we don't make
every time there's an event, right? You've got to pick up something new. You've got to collect them all.
Right? There's 2 event seasons a year in our industry, so yeah, you would be busy, right? So yeah, we try not to make big changes. And certainly not to a client side. You might bring in a slight tweak somewhere quicker than that, but it's not a hard and fast rule. But it's certainly that's what we're trying to do. If we say we're going to change our cybersecurity partner, which is no mean feat, then we wouldn't do that just on a whim because I've seen it at the latest and greatest event that we've been at. Right? We would certainly start the engagement, but we have a kind of structured process of that anyone can bring these services to us, but then it has to go through technical, then it has to go through sort of a commercial and operational point to make sure that we're paying for it correctly, that they can support us. And then there's the onboarding, which is everyone focuses on onboarding as technical. It should be technical and sales enablement, right? Because it's great that your techs can deliver it, but if no one knows how to sell it, then it's not going to get through the door in the first place. So both of those are important, and I now sit more and more over the commercial side of our business, and that having our team knowledgeable is key. So we have I might be, don't tell me if I'm going off on a tangent here, but we have everyone has sales meetings, or everyone that has a sales team should have sales meetings, and once a month we like I said, we're split geographically, so once a month we're together in a physical location, and we try and bring a vendor in for an hour slot to help the knowledge each time. So they get booked in, I think, like 3-4 months in advance at the moment, because obviously every vendor wants to come and talk to you. Right? It's
a good opportunity. I'm not going to lie. I was thinking a great similar thing.
But it's all about knowledge sharing, right? And it may be that we've had that vendor for 3 years, but it's just that refresh of how to engage, how to position it. What is it capable of? Hopefully there's been some changes in that vendor's product set somewhere. And that's just an ongoing process of, we sit under a value of always learning, always improving. And that's one of the examples of that is to try and push and ensure that we always know everything about the people that should be our partners without them just throwing, here's the new update. Do you want to spend an extra £1 per unit on this update type thing, right?
Are you tired of wasting time on basic proposal tools? Sales Builder goes beyond PDFs, automating your entire sales process to win more deals and boost profits. Do you want to have a look at how it works? First off, we provide you with the foundation of a nice, simple, centralized view of your company's contacts and all of the useful related data points, and that's automatically synchronized with your PSA. The most efficient MSPs are ruthless about only selling a standardized portfolio. Connect to your distributors for your hardware details and availability too, your PSA to pull in your managed services, and then clear out all of that noise and distraction of ad hoc products and services you've been selling over the years. Define a tight portfolio with service bundles Set your margins, specify standard up and cross-sell items, and make sure that everyone is doing the same thing right across the business. Once you're clear on exactly what you want to be selling, it's time to work out who you can sell it to. Our white space analysis module helps your sales teams get laser focused. Spot the upcoming contract renewals, anything you're underbilling, visualize the service gaps, and focus on the most profitable account growth opportunities. So you know what you're selling, you know who you're selling to, it's time to send a proposal. Get beautiful, error-free, standardized and interactive quotes sent out without all that copying and pasting from supplier portals, adjusting templates, editing product information, all that stuff that just hemorrhages time and profit. With drag and drop content blocks and templates, you can make sure your document really resonates with your customers' needs or even their vertical, but in a way that's fast to produce because it's standardized. Plus, of course, customers can edit quantities and options there on the fly, they can e-sign, and you can see all of this going on right from within Sales Builder. Should your high-paid salesperson be consumed with low value and repeat orders? With Sales Builder, proposals aren't the only way that you can do business. You can flick a switch to activate a personal, web-based Amazon-style shopfront for customers, stocked with only those items and pricing that you want that particular customer to see, and that they can purchase any time of the day or night without picking up the phone to you. So you're sending out quotes, there's activity in your storefront, but what's going to close this month? The quality of information in your pipeline is essentially dependent on whether a salesperson has kept it up to date. But just imagine for a minute a pipeline that updates itself. Sales Builder integrates with your PSA, giving you real-time deal stages and accurate pricing based on the actual quotes themselves. So there's no more forecasting surprises. Tired of clunky sales tools slowing you down? Sales Builder can be your secret weapon. Streamline your sales process, automate tasks, and discover all of that hidden profit. Start your free trial today and see how much you could be missing. We have got a great team of real people with lots of experience here, so let's chat and see how Sales Builder can help you take your MSP to that next level.
We've talked a bit about this has mainly been about sort of managed services and sort of recurring revenue, and a sort of a standardized stack. Projects are a nightmare for so many MSPs. Now, obviously, we can't fix that problem in the course of a podcast, but are there any things that you do around projects? Because obviously this ties in as well. So, for an account manager, first of all, how do they identify projects? And then a couple of tips around like how you get them out the door cost effectively or, profitably, I should say.
Yeah, that's two questions.
It's two. How do you introduce them, first of all?
So getting projects in from an infrastructure point of view, I never think is that difficult, because even in larger MSPs or smaller MSPs, they normally came from a technical background. So understanding the need from an infrastructure point of view is really easy.
Yes.
I think,
yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Or it's certainly easier. I don't want to dismiss it, but it's certainly easier. Coming on solution based, that may be slightly left of just putting boxes in somewhere or spinning up a cloud service. It is certainly more difficult and it's harder to identify. That initially comes from the knowledge. So as I explained earlier, making sure that we're aware of everything that's available, what is possible. The biggest learning curve for us right now is the two letters that I'm not going to mention, and understanding how we identify opportunities for that. So we've gone through a ton of training on that recently, and we're certainly. I always thought we were behind in understanding that technology and how to position it. As I've gone through this for the last couple of months, I feel that we're not leaders, and I don't really ever want to be cutting edge leader of new technology, because it comes with its own dangers. But we're certainly in the leading pack, and that's a good place for us to be. I feel that Urban have always been around that position when we come to emerging technology. Building a muscle memory around that, and then understanding what questions to ask is key. And that comes from training, and it comes again to the portfolio of don't change it all the time, because you can't build a strong relationship with your partners who are delivering it if you're jumping ship every 60 days, right? You need to build relationships with them and leverage their knowledge, leverage their skill set, either from their own resources or their resources to teach your resources.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? Certainly for the account managers, because they are going to have to shift a little bit. I mean, you've talked about how they're structuring the conversations, and that does lead it down a certain path, but they still need to become more of it's almost like a business analyst, isn't it, to surface some of this stuff.
Isn't it, James? Right? They start moving into that consultancy role, and when you start building sales teams, account managers, everyone says you need to be consultative selling, but no one tells you what that is. No one explains to you that. It's very flippant remarks. It happens in our industry a lot, and I'm sure it does in others. Of the moment one person does one thing once, that's what they do all the time. And I'm sure that there's smoke and mirrors in every conversation. I appreciate that. And as you get in the industry and as you get older, I'm sure you learn to identify that type of language. But it is a skill set, and it's not one thing. All of these things that we've just spoken about contribute to your ability and your skill of becoming effective in the role. Identifying it and learning it is hard. I would leverage partners. There's so much resource. I'd even leverage the new technology out there to ask you how to do it. Ask them, because they've got access to a wealth of information. Ask them, and then just take the bits you need. Pricing them for profitability, a whole different story. I would say we're not amazing at it. I'm quite happy to be open and honest. Projects and project delivery is always a struggle. Once you remove the veneer of everything's fine, we're excellent, we're super busy. Super busy doesn't mean profitable. It just means you're busy.
No, that's a common misconception in the MSP space, isn't it? When you chat to people, yeah.
Even if you've got a mixed team where they're running service desk and they're running projects, you need to try and split and understand, is the project side being profitable? Because 10 to a penny, the service desk side is. Right, because it's a stable. That's why we're in this industry. It's a stable recurring revenue. You can manage it.
Easier to fine tune, isn't it?
It is. Projects
consistent.
aren't. They're boom and bust, right? Infrastructure typically a bit easier to manage. We've got development team. The development team, and now the new world around workflow and automation. They're harder to manage, certainly, but because we've already got history and experience in delivering apps and delivering development projects, we're luckily, I feel we're a bit further advanced in scoping that work and understanding what profitable looks like.
What are some of the mistakes people make, Barry, out of interest? What are some of the mistakes people could look out for in the projects they're delivering? The
number one is putting a scope of works together. So your account managers, your salespeople should engage with your technical team to understand what the scope looks like, but you don't have to present the full scope to the client on your order form. What you need to explain is the outcomes of that project. This is what we are going to do, not how we are going to do it, and more importantly, what aren't we going to do. It's the outcome, and be specific on that. But the clearer you are, the better. Mark out what it is we're going to achieve, what that outcome is. Then either as part of that, or we do it after the sale, the engagement of the defined scope. We will do this. This is the impact. This is the risk. This is the change. These are the things we will do. We list a number of things we won't do. And there's that all-encompassing line of, if it's not in the section of what we do, we're not doing it. Yeah. So,
and is that internal, or is that client-facing as well? It's another document.
It's client-facing. We use a particular quoting tool
extra
to do
detail.
That. James?
Do you?
Yes.
Tell me about that. No, don't. That would be shameless.
It would be utterly shameless, yeah. So we've started moving into there because of the ability. Once you do one scope of works, typically 80% of the projects you do, the work within them are the same. Yeah, so if you can start building out chunks of text and scope of a particular project task, or even the whole phase, then you can reuse it. Then you work that through, and it goes out as an order form. They can sign it, but we'll put caveats on there if you allow us to start the project and accept our engineers on site or in systems.
Yeah, that counts.
You're deemed to accept this is the task. At that point, you've put that beautiful line in the sand. Now you can, and this is where we're not very good, you can then, if people ask for something out of scope and it's identified by engineers in flight, and that's the trick, that's the hardest bit to do, because every single engineer I know for the last 20 plus years I've been in this business are people pleasers.
Yes.
So,
which is great for customer experience, but there's a
it's
balance.
amazing, and there's a great balance between it. Okay, if you find a unicorn that understands commerciality against getting it done and showing how good they are technically because they just achieve these things, then hold on to that person with both hands.
Absolutely, definitely.
So, because then you'd move into a variance order, right? And the idea being that, look, it's out of scope because you've defined the scope. It's very easy to say it's out of scope. What typically happens is some of these things happen and you catch up on it, not in flight. You catch up on it towards the end, depending on what the project looks like. But you've still got the ability to go back to them saying, look, this was a 5-day project. It took 7. The reason it took 7 was because of you asked us to do that, right? And granted, we didn't catch it at the time. And it's kind of taken the lawyer or solicitor approach of, we've done all this work and you have that negotiation. You've got 2 days there. You could absolutely stand hard and fast and say, it's 2 days work.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you could engage with them and go, look, I'd do it for 1.5 day. You're setting precedents around what you're doing. So the next time you could probably bill for both days. It should be a relationship thing. It shouldn't be, to use an American term, you shouldn't nickel and dime them. You should work together collaboratively to get where both people are happy because the outcome has happened. And you have enough money that you can actually do the project again because you've kept the lights on.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And actually, even in my own business, I can take that on because I know what it's like. The scope is so important to be getting right and
do the work at the beginning. So
I think that's it, isn't it?
James, what we're bad at, and like I said, I'm normally typically fairly open and honest about these things, is we don't bill for that project management time well enough, or at all in many instances. So we've literally just started a process internally, and I learned this from another peer of, irrespective if you're going to charge or not, put the project management line item in the quote. Even if it's 0, put it in the quote.
There's value in it. Yeah.
Because then it's showing that you're managing some of the project. And once it's in there enough times, you can have the conversation of, I need to charge for this. And you can start to build that revenue because it's stuff you do, it's stuff that we do, and we're not getting paid for it.
That's a mistake so many people make, including me. You do think you're so busy getting the work done, but if you're not communicating it, as far as the client's happening, it's just clients can say it's not happening. It's
thinking about it, investigating how to do it, delivering a proposal on how to do it. All of these things are lost revenue. And if it's a billable resource doing this, which if it's a staff member, they're technically billable because you're paying for them. So somewhere that cost has got to be subsidized somewhere in your business. Then you wouldn't see a lawyer or solicitor not charging there every 6 minutes because they're reading something to help you with your case. We want to be a professional industry, so let's act like it. And it's all a journey. None of us are there, including us. As much as I'm sitting here talking to you now, but we've got so much to learn. But I'm hoping sharing some information, people learn faster from our mistakes.
Well, you've bookended that beautifully, Perry. I mean, we're going to segue into the next segment. I mean, that was absolutely perfect. Thank you. There's loads of gold in there, and I hope people listening are getting something from this, or maybe just thinking, great, actually, we are doing it right. We're doing a similar thing, or we're thinking about our costs, and hopefully you'll be better off for thinking about that stuff. Our next segment is called Speed Seeds. So we've got 3 questions for you. All right. So I need from you 3 things every MSP should do this quarter to grow from their existing client base. Any sort of top tips you might have? Now, don't worry if they sort of fall into what you said already or whatever, but if you had to pick out 3 that they should be doing?
Have a look at your service portfolio. Do you need it all? Reconcile that. That's number 1. Number 2, stay with that and negotiate all of your other vendors that you're choosing to keep. Go and negotiate on cost and understand everything that they deliver. There might be things in there that you don't know, right? That you can add. And the last one, and definitely the most important, in the next 3 months, depending on the size you are, in the next 3 months, talk either by phone or hopefully in person, talk to 100% of your clients. That's achievable.
Great advice. Next one. What do people get wrong about expansion selling in your experience? You're involved in so many, you've been involved in CompTIA, GTIA in the past, Network Group, you speak to a lot of MSPs. What do you think people get wrong about it? Is it just not knowing about it or any particular words of advice?
Yeah, certainly coming from expansion, there's a number of ways of expansion there. So let's look at the services. I want to sell more. Don't come at it from a technical perspective. Understand if that solution is a business fit and is it right for you. That's certainly the first one. The other bit in expansion, which it might sound counterintuitive, but don't sell everything to all of your clients. Because it probably won't fit them all. Make sure that you understand your client's business and sell the appropriate things for their business and their industry or their size.
So, since you've incorporated your business in 2003, what's the hardest lesson you have learned, would you say, on the topic of account growth?
So 3.5, 4 years ago, we merged with a business, and so therefore we acquire a client base there and a team. And it's understanding when to say goodbye. That's the lesson learned. Sometimes the clients aren't the right fit for you. As much as I just spoke about some of these conversations, not all money's good money. So understand that sometimes, yes, it's great you're getting some revenue at the top line, but if you have enough data, enough access to analyze that, some of that data is being eaten up by the amount of time that your staff are dealing with that client and trying to convince them to be a good client, to fit within the mold you are. Grading, that we spoke about earlier, grading the clients in whatever metrics that you want will help that. And it might come down to engagement. It might come down to they're just not pleasant people to your service desk team. They don't understand that because they haven't invested in their technology, they're going to get problems, but that somehow becomes your fault. If that's the situation, then as a leader of the team or an owner of the business, you need to do what's right by your team. And honestly, sometimes saying goodbye to a client, watch what happens in your business.
Brilliant. Thank you, Barry. That was brilliant for that segment. Our next segment is actually called Pass the Pitchfork. And it was Paul Lloyd that I spoke to last time on the podcast. And he was asking, why is it that MSPs are so fixated on exit all the time? Everyone's talking about exit. I need to get out of my business.
Yeah.
Have you got an answer for him? He'd like you to answer that question.
Okay, Paul. I think there's a straightforward answer of why so many talking about it. I put it in two parts. The first is because you're hearing the money. Yeah, so people are hearing how much people are potentially walking away with in terms of multiples. Maybe not as much in the last 12, 18 months, but certainly the years before that, there was an awful lot of PE money rolling in and people were paying, quite frankly, more than they needed to for these businesses. So it was inflating the market. I think the more realistic reason is if you look at the demographic of our industry, there's a huge amount of middle-aged people in there that are looking towards more retirement process than they are looking of their middle age. Okay, they're certainly moving through the middle ages. So that conversation is just inevitably going to talk about what am I doing next? What's the next chapter of my life look like? And that will probably involve, hopefully, an exit of some description.
That makes total sense. And it also presents a whole number of challenges in terms of when you're trying to bring on new technologies and evolve the way that you're working, the appetite for that. Thank you very much for that. So the Pass the Pitchfork element requires you to have a question for our next guest. So what would you like to know from our next guest on Harvest? Is there something you're struggling with or something you'd like some help on, perhaps?
Given that our industry is so collaborative, it's one of the most open industries I've seen. I talk to, as I've tried to detail earlier, I talk to many of our clients and they're amazed at the open conversations we have with what, quite frankly, could be a stranger. Yeah, and it might be a stranger that's operating 2 miles down the road from us, okay? So my question to whoever the guest may be is, why do you think that there are still a number of MSPs in our industry that do not want to engage within our communities, whatever they are, with peer groups, with the event space? There's so many of them, even just the online chat groups. Why don't they want to do that? I can't understand why you wouldn't want to learn from someone else's mistakes to make your business better, faster, instead of taking a year or two to go through the mistake yourself. Well, what do you think the biggest reason of that is?
Excellent. Good question. There's always this false sense, I find, as someone who goes to the events and is involved in the communities, that you're in touch with most of the MSPs. That is absolutely not the case. We just deal with the same pool of whatever it might be. What do you want to call it?
James,
5%.
there's
if
at
that
least
is
7,000
so many
small SME-based MSPs out there, right? There's a huge amount of them, and I thought, the same as you, right? We're in that industry quite a bit. We're in that community quite a bit. And so you think arrogantly, to a certain extent, that you know most people, and you just don't. There are times I over the last year or two, I've been trying to put myself back into other environments that I don't know, in groups and communities that I don't know.
Love that.
And all of a sudden, you see another 200-300 managed service providers, UK-based managed service providers that I just didn't know existed. So yeah, be more humble, less arrogant, and understand that the even the UK market is a very big place.
Perry, our final segment, I think you might enjoy this one, is called Industry Manure. So when you're out and about in the communities, at the events, or just absorbing content and advice from wherever it may be, what is it that really grinds your gears that you just think, no, that doesn't ring true for me. Don't like that. It's causing more harm than good.
I'm going to keep it in context, and it's people that bullshit.
Okay.
We term them within our business as 11 Arif people, and I don't know if you understand that terminology.
No.
So if I said to you, James, that I went to Tenerife, you would tell me that you went to 11 Arif.
I'm with you. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it's that one better. Yeah. There's so many people that feel that if there's white space, they have to fill it with their voice, and it has to be peacocking. It has to be how great they are about something, as opposed to being a little bit more humble and true to what the reality is within their environment, their business, their service. Like I in the previous section, being part of communities and being part of groups massively opens it up, and it just erodes those barriers. I can't stand these people that just all they want to tell you is how great they are, how great their business is, the services they have. It's all wonderful. But if we look at even the MSPs that we said we don't know, 80-90% of what we do is exactly the same. Exactly the same. There is no difference between us. To lead with anything and say we've got the best IT support because we're fast or we resolve quickly. Everyone says that. That's not the same. I hate 11 Arif people. There we go.
11 Arifs. I feel like I need some sort of graphic now. You know, like in Room 101. Yeah, I don't know if that's a
do you know what you're going to have
international show. Probably not.
There may be some international people there that are unaware of Tenerife as an island, but the UK market will get that with that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I need it to Room 101. You put things in a box that you can't stand, and then they fly off down a conveyor belt. I think that's kind of what we need on it potentially. So 11 Arif goes in Room 101.
James, that's a great idea. Create a Room 101. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'm going to change this segment. I'm going to.
What can I put in a box and banish from our environment, our world?
Sounds like a great investment of motion graphic design time and projects.
That's not wasted time, James, at all.
No, absolutely. Listen, Perry, it's been brilliant talking to you. I'm so glad. I feel like we got through most of the points that I was hoping to talk to you about. Listen, we do a final segment, and it's not a question. It's what would you like to let people know about where to find you, but anything perhaps you're working on, or if you want to give a shout. We call it a yell from the barn, just about your business and what you're doing.
Look, as I said at the beginning of this, I'm at an awful lot of events, as James, you well know, and it's effectively 2 event seasons that are very busy throughout each year. If you see me, come up and say hello. I love talking to people. I love understanding people in our industry, what their challenges are, any type of feedback. And I quite like to sit at the bar whilst I'm doing that. So I'm ready for a drink whenever you are.
Excellent. That's brilliant. And don't forget, if you get a chance to catch up with Perry, make sure you're asking about his misspent youth and music, dance, career, DJ, stroke, alter ego, which we'll not go into now. But look, watch out for a live stream coming soon.
There we go. Excellent. James?
Pleasure chatting. Yeah, thank you so much. Take care, Perry.
Goodbye.
That is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.